Man, it's in our own mood sometimes. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming tonight. Apologize for a couple minutes behind here. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So, who here is their first event at our office? Is it everybody in the room first time? Awesome. Welcome, guys. Welcome. This is our third one of these we have put on for real estate investing. Okay. I've done several events. I've done an investing course. I've talked about real estate investing at my conference that we put on. This year it's going to be in November, and your first night I think it's going to be at the casino this year. It should be pretty sweet. But anyways, I kind of wanted to change the name tonight because flipping to me isn't really real estate investing. But I want to say that before you got here, once you get you in the door first. To me, real estate investing is the speculation part of what we do. To me, it's the equivalent of building a house, right? If I'm in development and I build something to sell it, I think it's going to cost this much to build a house, and I think once it's done, I'll be able to sell it for that. That's kind of real estate speculation. I'm speculating that this is how it's going to go. I'm speculating that it's all going to go okay, and that's kind of the same with flips, right? This man over here has laid his hand on pretty much every single thing I've done for the last like 5, 6 years, probably. Is that fair to say? Yeah. So he can speak for the quality of the work, thank goodness, because I can't. I don't know if gamers have batteries on or how that works, really. But yeah, if you guys don't mind throwing a sign sheet, I apologize. I'm going to have one made for you. Just name, phone number, email. I would love to follow up with you and see if we can help you. Also, going to invite you to any of our other events that you can feel free to attend. You'll learn a little bit more about that tonight. But really, I just want to add value. Okay, this is obviously a free event. You walk in the door here. When I have anything to pitch you, anything to sell you, I just love real estate. I can talk freaking real estate on blue in the face, and that's easy for me to do. So I'm going to try to keep this rolling because we do have a fair amount of content to cover. But tonight's topic is real estate investing. Okay, but you'll never go ahead. You'll never hear me talk about an event without talking about this next slide. Oh, I forgot. I got to show off some free pictures. You remember this one? Yeah. Oh, Whitener, man, some before and after pictures. Obviously, you can tell which one's before, I hope. But this one's a flip of ours that we did. As you can tell, we did some new siding. We still liked the blue, just a little bit darker blue, I guess. It was pretty rough. Tore off the entire deck off the back. It also had like an above ground pool or something at one point. Brand new deck. This actually was like a enclosed patio that we just removed and made it a covered back porch with the new deck. As you can tell, revamped a beautiful kitchen. Redid some hardwood floors or laid new. Next slide. You remember Cordelia? And this was one of my favorites. So we were prepping for this event and we were looking back at some of the addresses that we had done. Like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that house. So this is one of my favorites. This is over here by the junior high school and Grace Church. Cordelia Street right there. I bought 3 houses in a row, all side by side, and we flipped all 3 of them. This one, when the appraiser came, we had to get people out of the house again that had gone back up to live. So we've seen it all, dealt with it all. But this was a beautiful remodel, and it might be a little tough to see, but just trust me. I'm just kidding. So I just want to show that off to kind of, hopefully let you know that I think we somewhat know what we're doing. I'm not going to call myself like this amazing pro or nothing, but again, just want to try to add value tonight and next. However, I can't do any event ever. So I'm glad this is your first time. So this is your first time hearing this. I won't do any of these events without ever talking about this. Okay. Now this lends the hand to actual investing, actual real estate investing, which to me is going to be multifamily real estate. That is my bread and butter. And I can talk about that all night. And I'm kind of mad I'm not right now, but we're talking about flips tonight. Okay. I can touch on it a little bit. I probably will right now. Okay, the financial seniority ranking. Anybody ever heard of Grant Cardone? Big celebrity, crazy guy. He uh he knows a little thing about real estate too. And I heard him whiteboard in front of his staff one time talk about the financial seniority ranking. This is his. I've just used it over and over and over and tried to master it myself. And it was like on an Instagram reel, nothing crazy, no, not like a big presentation. I just heard him talking about this to his staff, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa! That's the first 30-second video ever that has made total sense to me. And so hope it does for you too. The financial seniority ranking, it no trick. It's your finances, how you should think of them in order. Okay. Number one is income. I apologize, Jason's got it pretty here. Whiteboard. Number one is income. I'm putting it right here. Okay. I know we didn't come here to talk about money. Maybe we did. I think we did. The number one thing you should focus on 95% of your time is your money. You know what I mean? If I convince everybody here to do nothing but get your money right when you left this room and figure out how to make more of it, I did my job. Okay. We talk a whole lot of money about money at this company because it's important. And if you follow, there's four of them. If you follow these four things in order, they all make sense once you worry about your money. And if you keep your money right, everything tends to work out later. So what does that mean? Well, we can go around the room and talk about what we do for a living, how we make an income. We could also come up with other ways of how to make income, right? We could go join this man outside of the corner and we can ask for money. That's a way to raise income. Like, I don't care what it is. You have to think about how do I make more money? And the only things that should be below you is living in a life that you don't want to live in no more, right? That's the only thing that should be below you. You can go home tonight, go to your basement and sell 10 things and make some money. We should all be willing to do those kind of things if it means we're going to change our lifestyle, right? So number one has to be income. And I've done a 45-minute presentation on just the financial seniority ranking. So as you can tell, I would continue to talk about it, but I'm going to try to keep this train rolling. 95% of your time, your focus, your efforts, your energy to be on number one, if it's not where you want it to be. How do I make more of this? What can I do? Can I stay late? Can I pick up extra hours? You know, I work this part of the job, but hey, I'll do the janitorial too. I don't care. Give me extra hours as long as I can increase number one, the big I. You should do anything and everything to increase your income. You're welcome. You may leave. Number two is tax strategies, tax savings, however you want to look at it. Now that you have money, let's legally talk about how to save it, right? The rest of this list, as you can tell, doesn't really matter if you don't make any money. And that's not being rude or unpleasant or anything like that. It's just the truth. Who wants to go talk to their accountant about how little money they make? Doesn't excite me very much. I want to talk to all of my agents about how bad their tax bills are going to be and how much they're going to pay Uncle Sam because they blew it up that year. Seems to me like a good problem to have. Okay. Then once you have that miniature freak out moment, you're like, I can write what kind of check? Now we need to have some tax strategies. Now we need to be thinking about these along the way, but it doesn't matter if you don't make any money. Okay. So tax strategies. We've made the money. How can we figure out how to save it? Well, one of the best tax strategies is in real estate. Not necessarily what we're talking about tonight. Again, think of this as speculation. Okay. It's a great way to make money. It's a great way for number one. Let's remember that tonight. Flipping houses, number one, income, awesome. Horrible for your taxes. Okay, we'll learn more about that tonight. Number three is spending discipline. Number three is your spending discipline. This is where everybody gets stuck. Everybody gets hurt, right? I've made some big deals and I've sold some big properties and I've gotten some fat checks in my name. If I just went and blew down a brand new Lamborghini and a nice trip to the lake and all that kind of stuff, well, I just ruined that entire investment, right? It matters what you do with your money. I think we all agree in this room that you can be making $500,000 or you can make $50,000 a year and you could be the same kind of broke, just depending on your lifestyle, right? It doesn't matter if somebody's walking down the street in a suit jacket or not. What usually happens, and especially the middle class, is you get a raise, you get a new car. You get a raise, you wear your wealth, you buy a new watch, something like that, right? Instead of spending discipline says you get a raise, you learn how to increase number one, big I, and then you keep everything else the same for now. I'm not Dave Ramsey. I'm not going to tell you that you need to eat hot dogs and macaroni and cheese for the rest of your life. But there is an argument to let's get our finances where we want them to be in order to do this the right way. The right way, if you will. And then number 4 is the only reason you're here probably is to start thinking about how do we get into this world of investing. Again, everybody likes talking about number 4. If we go on Facebook right now and we just search for Bitcoin, I mean, we post of our friends and family and whoever else is talking about Bitcoin and talking about the latest and greatest investment and what to do with it. And it's like, well, no one really cares if you're not making any money because you can't invest in anything. So that's why my biggest encouragement to anybody who watching here is worry about number 1 first. Like, let's learn how to increase our income and do all that because everything else comes. These are in order, like I said. Now, if you do think about real estate investing, my encouragement to you is that is the best investment. Okay. The whole point of all of this, the whole point of why you're here tonight, the whole point of I don't care what you want to do in your life, we all have the same thing. What's the same thing? We all want time freedom. I don't care what you want to do, who you want to do it with. We're all after that. Right? Well, how do you get there? This, my friends. Very simply this. Okay, here's the whole, how do you get out of the rat race? You guys work hard for your money. I know you do. Okay, you wouldn't be in this room. You work hard right here as long as you possibly can. You follow these steps, and eventually you take this very hard-earned income, you follow the steps appropriately, you pour it into a passive vehicle, aka real estate investment, and then the passive vehicle pays for the life you've always wanted, pays for the fun. Your sole objective should not only be to do this the right way, follow the steps here, follow the 4 steps, but you should take enough of this hard-earned money, work your absolute tail off long enough where this pays you as much as that one used to. Now you have freedom, now you have choice. Pretty easy concept to understand, right? But the passive investment, passive means whether you're working or not, whether your head's on the pillow or not, whether you're at the beach or not, whether you're in the mountains or not. That's mailbox money. I have 130, 140 real estate units now where tenants are occupying those units. I don't know their name, they don't know mine, hopefully, and that's fine with me. You know what I mean? It's fine with me. That's not like sounding arrogant or be a jerk, but it's like it's passive for a reason, right? Now we have a management company, yes, we do deal with it internally. However, one day, if I'm living somewhere else and I still own my real estate investments and they're still paying every single month this cash flow because they got to pay their rent, right? Well, then eventually I'm going to have enough of that built up that I get to choose now if I work or not. Make sense? And that's why you see people like Grant Cardone and several others, I'm sure, that get a little, what some people might think, what's the word? Crazy, arrogant, you name it. Well, now you're just seeing him enjoy the fun. Like he's done all this stuff and he's still doing it like many others, but he's got so much passive that the passive money, he never used this money to pay for fun. That's the whole problem in the middle class. This fun, this fun, this fun. Makes more money, fun. Makes more money, fun. Makes more money, made a lot of money. That was great. Relax, crap. Back to the thing, right? That's just life. Instead of hard work, passive, hard work, passive, hard work, passive. Dang, that's a lot of passive. Lots of fun. When you see people like Grant Cardone like flaunting and having a good time, they're able to now because they have so much passive built out. It pays for the life they've always wanted. Does that make a little bit more sense? But that is the whole objective. Okay, so let me tell you how I got into flips. Because anybody ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad? Awesome book. Read it 5 million times. Okay, that's how I kind of got started in this thing as well. Is reading his book. So I was of the philosophy, I'm never ever selling anything, ever, real estate. If I buy real estate, I'm gonna die with it. That's what I thought. It's still a great buy and hold philosophy is great, but sometimes you can sell in order to buy better. Like you guys know where the Bachelor Suites building is, still probably going to do the Christmas tree lighting, have the big mural on the side of the building right there. I own that. I sold 10 properties at one time. It was a 1031 exchange, brought $0 to the table and bought that. Right? So that's a pretty cool thing. It's like playing Monopoly. That's an example of leveling up, right? Now, if I was to buy forever and hold and don't ever sell, I never would have accomplished that. That's why I was against flip for so long. I was like, forget flips. I'm never, ever, ever selling anything. Why would I buy it and resell it? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then I realized I was leaving money on the table. Okay. And that's what got me into flips. Again, I think I'm not going to use the whiteboard much tonight, so hopefully I'll refer back to that. Once I started realizing that if I walked outside and I saw a $10 bill, I'm going to pick it up. Right? Same thing with flips. I realized that if I wanted to buy bigger properties, better properties faster, well, I need to pay attention to flips because I was leaving deals I potentially knew were on the table where I might be able to go snag some more dollars to put down on my big properties and just get there faster. It might be some of your thoughts you've had, right? So, I think I got a lot to cover. And I do have an example. I got a couple of handouts. So I'm gonna try to go through this somewhat quick, okay? And I promise time for questions at the end. These usually go like in hour 15, hour and a half. Just a heads up if you need to text anybody and tell them they're gonna be late. I'm just kidding. The mindset and strategy of flips. Okay, examples of investing. Buy and hold is kind of what I just talked about. That is true real estate investing. You got to start somewhere. Okay, like I said, the whole purpose of even teaching about flips is I hope you use the money to buy actual real estate you want to keep and hold for a while. And if you want to play Monopoly, 4 red houses, 1 red hotel, awesome. That's what I did. Okay, it's a real thing. The first strategy. Anybody ever heard that before? Awesome. So very quickly, first strategy, great actual investing technique too. You buy, rehab, you kind of put some work into it, kind of like we're talking about tonight. Only difference is you don't resell. You buy, rehab / remodel, rent it out, refinance, and repeat. Okay, so that's the BRRRR method. Really quickly on that. When you buy it and you rehab it, you're increasing the value, right? Which is what flipping is about. And then when you rent it out, you're also adding value because now you have a tenant paying every single month. Not only do you have a property that's worth more, paying you every month, you take it to the bank and say, check this thing out. I bought it for 100. It's worth 150. I'm getting 1,000 a month out of this sucker, and you should give me my money back. And they're like, you're right. My only checking balance is an appraisal, and make sure you're not crazy. All right, let's do that. And then the 80% rule, which we're going to talk about tonight, so I won't go into it for this, but same for the BRRRR method. They say we'll give you up to 80% of that value. Well, if the value is truly 150 now, and you probably put some money down, you made the property better, maybe you put your own sweat equity into it, right? You made it better. You added some free labor. Well, chances are you got a nice equity there that you can take. And then now you can take that equity and just go use the 5-dimensional. That's why that's our repeat. People have done this over and over and accumulated a lot of properties doing so. It's a great strategy. Wholesaling. Anybody ever been interested in wholesaling here? Yeah, it's a strategy. A little bit tougher probably in small town USA, but it's possible. I've bought flips from wholesalers before, as in ones that I wanted to flip from them. You see a lot of this in bigger cities and stuff too, like those bandit signs is what they're called. If you see like 3-bedroom and 2 bath, we buy with cash, whatever, those kind of things. Basically, what wholesalers try to do is flip contracts, right? So if I'm buying a property from you for $50,000, and I got a great deal, I might go try to sell it to you for $70,000 and make 20 by selling that piece of paper. That's wholesaling. I don't let my agents wholesale as real estate agents because it seems like there's a conflict of interest as far as what you're trying to do there. But if you're wholesaling and that's your job, hey, cool. People make some dollars doing that. It's completely up to you. Development, like we talked about, that's also speculation. Let's not get it twisted. That's a way of saying, I hope this works out well, just like flips. Okay. But who would have came tonight if I said real estate speculation class? Probably nobody. So we had to keep the name the same. Understanding your why and the objective. Again, this is the mindset strategy of flips. I don't have to tell you guys understand your why. You've heard that on the internet 1,000 times. But it does stand to ask yourself, like, why am I getting into this? Stacking up cash is great, but do I have a purpose for it? Your purpose, yes, it should be your kids and all that kind of stuff, but it also should be a strategy behind, like, let's get to number 4, because number 4 gives us the life that we all want, no matter what it is. So, like, put a strategy in place, right? But understanding why you're signing up to do this, like anything, right? And then risk versus reward. I think it's because I'm probably not as smart as most of you in this room, but my trigger finger, man, it comes quick. It comes quick. I'll pull it, and I just don't have much problem with risk. Okay, I'll put it on the line. I'll make it happen. I'll tell you, I'm thankful you're here tonight, because the reason I probably don't care about the risk and what I do so much is because I somewhat know what I'm doing at this point. Does that make sense? And the more you know about your craft and understand, like, selling houses is my day-to-day job, right? If I think I can sell something for X, I'm probably at least pretty close where I won't get hurt. So it's very easy for me to play that risk game. Because once you get into the investing, to me, that's the safety part about my world. Okay. Whenever I own an asset like this building we're sitting in right now, it's very real to me. Like, this is awesome, right? We're all sitting here right now. I could sell this tomorrow if I had to get some money, or I could rent this out tomorrow if my business went down. It's a very stable, real asset. Okay, my business got 41 real estate agents that could leave me all tomorrow. They could walk out the door and say I quit, and this could all go bad pretty quick. That is risk to me. Okay, owning a big fat apartment building is not risky if you know the numbers and they work. Kind of the same thing with flips, even though it's speculation, even though yes, there's risk. And please don't walk out here and say Jared said real estate's not risky. Okay, I don't want to see it. Real. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. We all heard it. But yeah, there is risk involved. And a lot of that is going to be your numbers. You're going to see tonight that I like to plan on the absolute conservative side of, like, let's plan on this doesn't go very well. And same thing with real estate investing. Let's plan on, let's go and add in, we need a new roof, probably. You know what I mean? Let's just plan on the absolute worst case scenario. And if we like that, hey, let's pull the trigger. If we like worst case scenario, that's how you should run your numbers. Give you a head start. Pull that trigger if it's anywhere close to what you like. Make sense? Next. All right, finding the right property. Okay. That is, I don't know, it's a big chunk of it when it comes to flips, right? It's got to be the right property. The idea of worst house in the best location, worst house in the best neighborhood. That's the philosophy of flips that you've probably heard before or thought about before, right? And these are just things for you to keep in mind, right? But there's lots of tools for finding MLS. Not gonna lie to you guys, I kind of have a leg up on the competition when it comes to flipping. Why? I'm a real estate licensee, right? I'm a real estate broker. I have access to MLS. It kind of helps to see deals for everybody else. Agent technology, you can see deals too. Zillow, Realtor.com, you name it. Like I said, I have even myself bought a couple deals from wholesalers that brought me deals and sold me the contract. Auctions, aka at the bottom, usually my field auction, I think I go into the courthouse and buy properties. I bought numerous properties that way. That is a cash game, just a heads up. Once you get to the point of having some extra dollars like that, it turns out you might get a good deal. It's gotten very popular over the last few years. Maybe a little bit less now, just current economy type thing. So you might be able to find a little bit deal if you're there to pay a little bit more of a deal to pay cash, because how many people can, right? Now, anybody own real estate in the room? Any type of real estate? Awesome. So start thinking about that too, because when I say cash, it doesn't make me sound like almighty and fancy. That's a line of credit, okay? And then once you start to accumulate real estate, and I'm not going to tell you how to use your real estate or the house you live in or anything like that. We have our own thresholds of comfort, right? But like I have a big piece of ground that we were able to get at a good deal. I don't like having things paid off. I'd rather leverage it. We can talk more about that later too. So always use other people's money, aka the bank. So I don't have piles of cash sitting around that I go just buy houses with. Okay, that's a misconception. What I do have is leveraged real estate, which acts as cash. If I have a big line of credit against a property with a threshold of how many dollars I can spend up to the 80% rule, like we were talking about, well, now I can steal some of that, rob Peter to pay Paul, and go buy this house in cash. Okay, why does wholesalers say that they can pay in cash? They don't have the cash either. Wholesalers, they take their properties to somebody like me who might have a line of credit or cash and buys it off their hands. That's why they can promote it with that. Okay, yes, you can do direct mail. I mean, guys, driving for dollars is such a real thing. Drive around and just visit neighborhoods you like. Maybe neighborhoods that you want to live in or buy in, and it's like, wait, they didn't mow their grass. Something's up. Wait. They got a carport and I don't see a recycling can or a trash can. Something's up. This thing's vacant. Why? That for rent sign has been there for 4 months. And I know they're sick and tired, not ready to sucker out. Maybe they sell. There's so many signals like that you can just drive around and notice and ask yourselves, okay, well, maybe they'll sell. I don't have too much time to hang out in this section, but county assessor's website, you can search any property or any name you want to find out who owns it. If it's owned in an LLC, you can search on the Secretary of State's website, search the name of the LLC, and you'll most likely get a mailing address and find out who owns it. Okay, next. So we have planning and budgeting. See how we're right here. Got a lot to go over. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. You're gonna see an example of this too, okay? Try to mesh both worlds, information / an example. Estimating the renovation costs, obviously important. Your high ROI renovations is like what's going to increase the value most. Kitchens, bathrooms, yes, that's a very real thing. Curb appeal, major thing. Creating your scope of work, aka your numbers that come back from your contractor. Larry Altman that we work with, he does all my numbers, and I have an example from him I'll share with you tonight that him and I worked up. Choosing the right contractors are everything. I'm not just saying this because he's in the room and works on the crew. Guys, I'd be nothing without them. Like I said, I can tell you what I think needs to be done. You don't want me picking up the hammer. I can promise you that. It wouldn't look very good. And I don't have the time. Even if I had the time, eventually, and even if I was handy, eventually you got to make a tough decision and play more of the business side into so you can increase the amount of activity you can do, right? But the right contractors, growing that list of those early, and getting people you can work with and depend on, literally the lifeblood of flips. Literally, I can't explain that enough. Okay, we have flipped 43 houses, and among that, remodeled 12-unit apartment building, couple other buildings, and currently a 70-unit apartment building we're working on while doing 2 flips. Okay, so we do a whole lot of work together, and it's nice at this point in our relationship, 5, 6-ish years in together, that I can close my eyes and completely trust them in what they do. I could hand them a flip at this point. They know the price range I'm going after, and they can say, "Hey, you want me to do this one like we did Black Oak?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I can toss the keys and walk away because we know each other so well. Make sense? And they know what we're going for. So cannot express how huge that is. Okay. And maybe it'll take some getting used to finding the right person, 40 people against each other. Why is this HVAC guy completely high against this HVAC guy? All that kind of stuff. And what does he ask for repair value? I'm only saying it for this presentation. He's never heard me say ARV, after repair value. I don't talk weird lingo, real estate stuff, but that's what a lot of people call like flips. Like, what's it going to be worth after the fact? ARV, after repair value. Biggest thing you need to do there is hire one of us. And I don't say that to try to get your business, but yeah, I'll give that second. Not yet. But the ARV determining what you can sell something for, obviously is a big part of that now. Okay, I can buy a flip for here, it's going to take this much to repair, and I can sell it for X. Well, if you don't know what to sell it for X at, none of it works. None of this makes sense. You'll lose deals all the time. If I go to auction, people hate to see me. That's not blow, whatever the word is, bloated. Yeah, is that right word? Yeah, okay. It's not bragging, being audacious or anything like that. It's just the truth. Like I know top dollar what I can get for this property. Maybe the people I'm bidding against do not, because this is my day job. Make sense? So having a real estate agent say, what can I get for this property eventually, a big, big deal. Next. Okay, financing the flip. Now I put a lot of options on there on top. Don't do any of that. Okay. Unless you have your own money, and that's okay. But really, you should look at the bank loan. And your objective leading here tonight should be I need 20% down. Okay, I need 20% down, I need 20% down, I need 20% down, I need to focus on my income. If you can do that, everything else falls into place. Like we learned. If you're buying commercially, which this is a business, so if you're buying a flip, it's gonna be a commercial property, even though it's not like a 5-unit apartment, it's commercial, okay? In this aspect, because you're buying through your LLC. Don't flip properties in your own name. Takes one lawsuit and you're done, okay? But you're gonna purchase your LLC, have an attorney create the LLC. Why? I can do that on Secretary of State's website for $50. Hire somebody for $500, $600. You just create a relationship. Now they create your LLC, they create your documents you need, all that kind of jazz. And if you ever have a question, you have to go to your attorney. Okay. And then really, the way to do this is through the construction loan, which I think now I'm going to stop to talk about. Yes. Now, you can use a regular bank loan like I just told you to, and that's great. But what about those repairs? I don't know if you guys have seen costs right now on buying a piece of wood. It's up right now. So yeah, you bought the property. Good job. Now you need $100 grand to work on it. Woo, buddy. That's where the construction loan comes in. Okay. This is the beautiful, beautiful thing. So let's say that you found a property that you want to work on for $100,000. You're able to buy it for $100 grand. Okay. And let's say through your numbers, you're skipping ahead a little bit. You know, it's going to take $50,000 to get it where it needs to be. The repair costs. Okay. That kind of thing. Well, after that, obvious math, it's going to be worth $150,000 at least. At least. Sometimes after you fix it up, it's going to be worth even more, right? So usually these days, they're going to make you put 20% down on the overall project. You're asking them to pay for repairs. This is the whole point of the construction loan. I forgot to say that. Okay. So if that means I need to plan on 20% down on the whole thing, my purchase price plus repairs. Now, back in the day, it's very, very common. They just made me put 20% down on 100 grand, bring 20 to the table. They would fund the repairs, and we'd go off and ride to the sunset. If it's the right deal, they still might do that depending on how much equity's in the deal. But let's say you had to bring the $30,000 to the table, okay, and now you have $120,000 left over that you owe. Okay. Now, after doing all that work, like I said, it's probably not going to be worth the exact dollars you put into it, or you wouldn't have gotten to the deal. Like, well, I'm not going to put 50 into it just to make it worth 50 more. I want to make this thing worth a lot more, or I wouldn't have bought it, right? So let's say that now, what I said that checking balance was for the bank earlier, the appraisal. They're going to send somebody out. They're going to take your sheet of paper with all the numbers that you said you're going to do on it. Show you that in a little bit. And they're going to say, okay, if you do all this work that you said for $50,000, you do the kitchen, you do the bathroom, you're going to make it what you said you're going to be. I'm going to do my appraisal subject to all that being done. You hear subject to a lot. So that means all that stuff you said you're going to do, if you do it, it's going to be worth X. Let's say 225. That is the after repair value, if you will, the ARV. Okay. Now, remember the 80% rule we talked about? 225 times 80% is 180. What do we owe? 120. That means we got $60,000 worth of equity left over. Okay. And that's why they're comfortable giving you the 50 you need for the repairs. Make sense? Now, 80% rule I've talked about a couple times tonight. Let's say that this is all done, all the repairs were good, all these numbers worked out, and you're doing the BRRRR method. Okay, I have a property worth 225. I only owe 120 because I paid off everything else, and I have $60,000 worth of equity. Well, doing the BRRRR method, the 60,000 is the number you would have left over to go use as a down payment on something else. So literally, guys, you might just have to get one ahead. You get one ahead, now you can take the 60 and buy something else with 20% down, right? If buying this property was $30,000 down, well, now I can buy even better property because I got 60 to put down. Or just put 40 down, keep some equity in the other. Okay. But as long as your numbers work out where the appraisal says you're not crazy, yeah, you put this much money into it, it's gonna be worth this. You got a good deal. That's all the bank really needs to know. And then they will pay for your repairs. I don't know about you guys, even if I had the money, I'd rather someone else spend it. OPM, other people's money. Okay. I could read through my list of flips that we've done and tell you mistakes all throughout. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes I ever did, you remember Albert Rashi? Like 5 years ago. Albert Rashi? Yeah. It was a great property. It was a little bit, it was like 2018, 2019 probably. So it wasn't like the crazy COVID years yet where you close your eyes and get 20 offers. Biggest mistake I ever made in that deal was I bought that at the courthouse steps. It was one of my first deals I bought at the courthouse steps. I actually bought it in cash, not in line of credit, and I over leveraged myself completely. I used most of the cash I had saved up to that point, bought this property, all cash off the courthouse steps, and forgot about the repairs. Now, the smart thing said, well, you take this asset that I own free and clear to the bank, because remember, they will give you up to 80% asset. If I own it free and clear for 100,000, they'll give me 80 grand. Well, usually you have something to owe. That's why we subtracted off the 120, right? Because you owe the 120, now you have the remainder that you can use. 80% of what's worth. Okay. Well, this one, the smart thing to do would have been, oh, just take this asset that I now own, free and clear, so I bought in cash to the bank, get leverage on it, and then take the money and do the repairs from the bank. Let them finance the repairs. Well, I thought, oh, we're going to do this one so quick. I got some extra money I can throw in the repairs. So now without the like $120,000, $130,000 to buy the property, now it's out like $60,000, $70,000 in repairs. And I paid all this out of my pocket and just freaking starved for like 6 months. And it took longer to sell than I thought. Over leveraged. Guess how many other deals I bought in those 6 or 7 months? Zero. Right? Now, if I use the bank's money, I have more money available to me. I might buy 3 or 4 deals at one time. Right? Does that make sense? Next. Okay. Making an offer. Look at that pretty picture of all of us. You got to get a realtor attorney. Don't do the front of the internet stuff. Make sure it's done the right way. You got to know your numbers. We're going to talk numbers in a second. Here's a biggie, and maybe something to take home and think about. What do you have to offer when it comes to making an offer? Okay. What I mean by that is, what value do you get to bring to this situation when you're talking to the seller about why they should go with you? Okay. For me, I'm going to say something like, well, hey, we've looked at enough properties. We know we're getting into. I've walked through 1,000 or so properties, right? Actually, more than that, several thousand. I've sold 1,300 deals for my clients, right? I've seen everything you can possibly see. If I walk through a house and I'm pretty confident what we're dealing with, unless there's something underground I can't see, I'm getting pretty comfortable making an as-is offer as far as what we're getting into. So now I can make an offer as is, not gonna have to jack with inspections. Okay. What if I have the big line of credit for cash? I can offer cash, and then being a real estate agent, I can offer to pay for it. Because you know what we like to do? We like to get our 6% or 5% or whatever. It's real estate. If you got to pay somebody like me to do the deal, okay, that's something else. And that's fine. You know, it's not a bad thing. Obviously, have a professional involved, or your attorney or something. But if I'm making an offer, I'm gonna tell the seller, hey, I'm running the thing, I'm writing the contract, $0 off your back, make sure it's nice and smooth. It's as is, it's cash, I can close whenever you want. And if the seller's in a situation, they might be like, oh dang, this is pretty nice. Like this, you know, sounds pretty good. Like you're not gonna inspect it at all. But no, this and this and this is messed up. Like, well, yeah, I know that too. Thank you. So a lot of these situations, guys, they end up being such a win-win. For usually the seller, if they're selling a distressed asset, it's probably distressed for a reason. And I'm not about like hammering people down. I'd rather just create win-win situations. And usually there's very, very achievable ways to do so. And a lot of them is through the value you provide in your offer. Like, hey, don't worry about the rip carpet. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want to put this on the market, you'd rather just, sell it at a price that makes sense. You don't have 50 grand to put into it to bring it back up to speed. By you making it an as-is offer, well, it might afford you a better price. And your whole objective is make this seamless, right? Cash as is, close whenever you want, take an extra month to do that. Like whatever. Come up with something. Come up with your pitch. Next, timeline. Okay, timeline and project management. So we're gonna get into this a little bit as well. You got to consider your financing costs. I have a sheet for you that I've broken down some of this a little bit more. You can take with you and kind of look at it. It's not rocket science, right? But these are just things to consider. Biggie right now is that first one. My goodness, 7.5% prime. It's not cheap. When you think about borrowing 60 grand or whatever to do the repairs, well, 60,000 times 7.5%. It's not a penny anymore. So you got to take that into consideration. Any lender fees, loan origination fees, legal fees, stuff like that. Next. Your holding costs, things like taxes, insurance, utilities, lawn care. Flipping comes with speed. Okay. Obviously, the faster you turn something and burn it, well, the less of that I have to pay, which means I just make more money. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now taxes, that's going to be prorated at closing. You just got to pay your days of ownership. Insurance, not fun right now. The whole world of insurance, you guys know this. We're not in Florida, but it still isn't very fun. That's not very cheap. Things people don't really think about for your holding costs. Like me on this sucker, and I get my career there, and would like to not work in 100 degrees, get our AC on. We got to have utilities, stuff like that, right? And the time of year, I love it, but it always never fails. You got to start mowing grass, and there's a cost that comes along with that. All right. Now your timeline is everything, right? You got to kind of plan some of this out for your holding costs, what that's going to be, and consider the last thing is your cost to close, right? Agent compensation, and I'm not just saying this as a joke anymore. You want the highest value, you should probably hire an agency well worth the 6% or whatever you have to pay, and they might give you a value that you wouldn't have tried in the first place. So it might pay for itself. You know what I mean? You're gonna have some closing costs. Now, seller side closing costs, it's all learn something time. Seller side closing costs, if I'm selling property outside of compensation, it's only me a couple $100. Okay. The thick closing cost comes in on the buying side. If I got to pay a buyer's closing cost, and they ask me to pay like $3,000 or $4,000 or something like that, that's different. And then title fees, all that kind of stuff. It all wraps in the closing statement, right? Next. Okay. Profit projections. Now, sometimes on the investing class, I get the questions like, well, what's a good return? It's like, well, I guess it's kind of subjective because what you think is a good return might be different than what I think is a good return. And if I'm making an offer on a property because I want X dollars return, but somebody's willing to take a little bit less because they're okay with this kind of return, well, it's kind of up to you. Now, I will tell you, whenever I flip a house, that's a little different, right? Than like a long-term hold. I'm trying to earn this much back on my money. I like to see 20 grand. And I'll tell you why. Well, I'd like to make 20 grand. That's how it starts. Secondly, you got to have some margin in this world. If I was okay making just 10 on a flip, don't get me wrong. Every single one of us walk outside, I pick up $10,000, right? Yes, 100%. Margin though in flips is everything. As you're going to see, and we're talking about in a second, we haven't had a bid, and this is not even a thing. This is called life of real estate, private home ownership. You're always going to end up paying more. This will be extra. Or guess what? We got an inspection. Now they want more rent. We got to go do that too. Or once you start digging into the property, there's always more stuff to find, right? There's always more stuff like, oh gosh, we didn't see this. That beautiful white hair property, the blue one we showed you earlier, we didn't know it had been raining down the side of a bedroom wall for however many months, years, and that they had to not be fully replaced. Guess what? That's an extra cost. It's just part of the game. So if you don't have margin built in, there's been 20 where I should have made 20 and I only made 13. Well, I feel a lot more pissed if I was supposed to make 10 and I made 3 or less. Okay? So you gotta have some margin. So plan conservatively. You're gonna see me playing conservative on the deal I used tonight. But if I think, and this goes for both sides of the coin, if I think I can sell this property for 225, my numbers are gonna be planned at 215. If I think it's going to cost 60 grand to put in this, I'm going to put 70, 75. Always playing with margin, playing conservatively. And if you still like the numbers after it, like I said, pull the trigger. Okay. So again, talk to your accountant, but the truth is this is a short-term game. This is where, again, you're in this to make money when you're doing flips. This is a business. I think I got even a slide up in there later for this. But it is a short-term capital gain. This isn't a buy and hold where you're having it more than a year. I hope you're flipping a house and have it more than a year. But you have basically the profit made from selling it under 1 year. It's taxed as ordinary income, okay? And it's taxed at your federal tax bracket. Okay, so if you're being taxed at 30% in the federal bracket, this counts toward that too. It's ordinary income. Okay, and you're also going to have your state income tax still and your self-employment tax because this is viewed as a business. Okay, that you're making money on. Now, what we're not getting into tonight, ask your accountant, is Jerry chose to move his LLC that he puts properties in into an S corp. Why? Because it helps reduce some of that self-employment tax and stuff like that. So there's things you can do, but there's no getting out of the fact that yes, you're going to pay taxes on your money you make. Okay. Next. All right, we're moving pretty good now. Lastly, like I said, please understand this is my opinion only. Maybe by now you share it. Flipping is a business. This is not real estate investing. But if the whole point of you being here tonight is that you can learn how to flip properties, get into an investment, and make an extra 20, 30, 40, 50 plus $1,000, and you use that money to buy an asset that you keep and rent out, we have won. That is awesome. That should be everyone's objective. Okay? Woo, buddy. Do you recognize this one, Skylar? I know he'll recognize some of the other pictures, but this is what this one did look like. We have a property under contract right now on Shawnee and Jackson, and that was our latest flip. This is one that we're currently working on. Whenever I first walked through this property, that's what it looked like. Can you guys see these pictures at all? That's a garage right there. Literally looked like that. Garage door wouldn't open all the way because there were 3 different clotheslines that were going through the top as well, with clothes hanging on, boxes to the ceiling. We thought the garage door was stuck and it had 2 latches on either side. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. So I climbed over literally the boxes on the top to go see if there was a latch on the other side, and my hair is straight in the ceiling. That's how cool this garage was. Okay, this was an actual hoarding situation. Okay, if you can't tell. So these people specifically called me because they heard I buy flips. So what we told our agents this morning, we do a daily call, we always end with a word of wisdom. I said, promote what you do want. Okay. Sometimes in life, you got to put yourself out there and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. Hey, I'm looking for a apartment building. Anybody know something for 2 to 4 units? Put yourself out there and lo and behold, it happens. So by now, some people know that not only do I help people buy and sell real estate, but I own real estate and I flip houses. They see us doing before and after pictures. So people will see stuff like this. So we have family, 3 siblings, all live in different states of the US, none of them Missouri. Okay, this was mom and dad's house. They discovered that mom and dad were living like this. Dad passed away. Mom now has assisted living, and they had control of the trust. I'm the kid of the property. As you could probably guess, this would be a very tough condition to list the property for sale, anyways. If I had to put it on the market as a real estate agent, something had to happen. But they weren't. I gave them all the options when they said no. We specifically called you because a friend of mine told them that I the houses. We would love to see this in restored. That is a really cool part that I haven't really talked about tonight. It is really, really fun restoring properties and putting life back into it, which is what we plan to do yet again here. But never had one like this before. This is one of those what do you do situations, right? And remember when I talked about how do you add value to a transaction? Well, silly me, one of the things I offered was if the price is right, I'll take care of all that. Okay, now it's going to be a complete dump situation, trash it all, kind of a lot of that. Which these guys, I'm sure, carried a lot of loads of the dumpster for me. But this one was a little different. Why? Because this was the house that these people grew up in. So what did that mean? We made a lot of family possessions in there they still cared about, and it's kind of hard to know unless the family's there without them giving me like a list of specific things what we're even looking for and how do you look for it in that. So part of my offer was I will personally oversee and be there for removing every single thing that came out of that house, 99% of it. And for 3, 4, 5 solid months, plus these guys, they would have killed me if I said, I need you guys to take care of this. Because they're working on a 70-unit apartment building. I can't pull them off that for 4 months to do this. So I'll roll up my sleeves and me and one friend in particular, and then a couple extra over some time, we removed all this from the house. Those big 30-yard dumpsters that you guys see, we filled it up 18 times or so. It was a lot. Now this is what it currently looks like. It's not done yet. Like I said, it's in progress, but my goodness, that looks so much better. That is, correct me if I'm wrong, Skylar, some paint on the walls and some demo. Yeah. And obviously we ripped up the old flooring, stuff like that. I took a picture of the kitchen because the biggest thing I want to tell you tonight in the world of flipping that people usually get wrong is they feel like they need to do everything. Maybe in certain price ranges, you do need to do everything. We're not selling this for 600 grand. We're selling this for 200 something. So that tile, not cracked, it's not blue, perfectly fine. The cabinets, solid wood. We're going to paint them. They're going to look good. That white house we showed you earlier, we painted those too. We'll put some new countertops on it. We're going to make it look nice and fresh. But that was a decision we made for the price we're trying to achieve. And that is, when we look at these numbers a second, that's huge to the bottom line of, do I even buy this house or not sometime? Because if I'm like, oh, well, we need to do kitchen. Stop. If I get a budget, the floor in there, new cabinets, new countertops, we're already doing new appliances, my whole budget can be shot. You never know. Okay, so that matters a lot too. So now we can do handouts. You want to just take one and pass. Actually, can I have one of those too? Thank you. I'm going to take you through this process. I'm sorry. I'm going to take you through this process, okay? Now, this was a very different example. Okay. Usually I walk through a house, I decide if I think I want to buy it, and I bring Larry along. We talk through what we think we would need to do, have to do, what should be done at a property. Larry goes back to the computer, does all this fancy magic, and gives it back to me. Then we make a decision. Okay. Now, I've done this enough where I can probably walk through and say, I think this is about a $70,000 remodel, and at least be pretty close. I always like to bring Larry along, my contractor, just to make sure, because he's going to run the actual numbers. And that's the sheet you see with all the bid numbers on there. So he adds in there. You can see for labor and materials is all added into his numbers. The weird thing about this one is until I got all the stuff and trash and you name it off the ground, we really had no idea what we were working with. So we were under contract with this property for about 3 or 4 months until I could actually see the property. You know, I couldn't have Larry walk through and say, tell me what you think, what should we do when we were taking little goat paths through the entire home. That's a little different, okay? But in most properties, you can walk through with your contractor when you're taking a look or you're meeting the seller and say, hey, do you mind if I meet my contractor? And then every single room we walk through, Larry and I are taking notes about what needs to be done. So I don't have to count every single ceiling pan, every single floor we're going to pay attention to and decide if we need to do it or not, right? And that's what we do. So at some point, once it got close to being fully out, Larry and I walk through and you can see some things we're talking about. He budgeted for some additional roll-off dumpsters, the demo, cleaning the floors, cleaning the basement floors. You can see that there was a crack in the foundation in the laundry room. So some of it, a lot of flips is cosmetics, but we do not leave things undone if it needs to be done. Like if there's an issue, you have to budget. Like you're going to have to fix it. A, you should. B, your reputation is everything in flips. You can't just leave somebody an issue or a problem. And that's why you always plan your with some margin, because there's going to be more stuff that you just can't leave. I can't say how many times we bought a property off the courthouse steps. Water hadn't been on in 2 years. You get the water turned on, and these guys are fixing 20 to 30 different leaks around the thing. Well, now we budget for that. If you did it, you can't leave it, right? But some of that's to take into consideration too. I'm very quickly going to read through some of this, but obviously painting on the walls, doors, trim. Hey, keep this, not because you can go hire Larry, but maybe use this as, okay, I see that split foyer looking house. I see it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Let's see what they cost to paint this up. And then if you go get your own painter, they charge $38,000 to paint a house, I'm like, whoa, seems a little bit different for this estimate, right? You got to start learning what it takes for all these numbers. Prepping those cabinets, new countertops, the appliance package, and all your appliances, new fixtures, carpet, floor. These are all things when you're walking through, you're taking your notes. What does it need? Okay. This is a vinyl plank right here. We put this stuff everywhere. It's sturdy, it's pretty, it's cost effective, it's water resistant. They make it in different shapes and tones and stuff now. It's really good stuff. Again, a lot of these decisions are per the price range. I can't stress that enough. Don't overflip your house. It's an investment. Okay, this house, those countertops, does it mention in here? What does it say, countertops? Okay, it just says new countertops and kitchen. You're not buying granite for $2,000. Okay, this is a very nice looking laminate that rolls off the end, does not have the big fat lip on the back anymore. They make some quality looking laminate you can install in kitchens now. Okay, if this was a $500,000 house, we're putting granite everywhere. Okay, but don't overflip the house. Okay, you got a new garage door, you get a new breaker box in there, yada yada yada. Now we don't do all this work. Like we have an electrician that we hire that does the breaker panel. So you may have to call and get some subcontractors out. Hey, how much you charge for an electric panel? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay. This roof looks pretty good. I can't even barely tell from the pictures. The one on Shawnee, it was shot. We had to replace it. I wouldn't catch it if I could, right? Oh, I didn't send this picture. I took another picture of the bedrooms, but it shows that we just had the the brown trim on all the windows painted as well. Okay, we didn't replace these windows. That was a decision I made for this price range. Does it need new windows? No, probably. Let somebody else do it though. Okay. Question for you. Brand new roof. Does it add value or not? Everybody said no. It adds value to maybe the buyer, right? It's a feature that you want. Everybody wants a new roof. Do a real estate and you're doing comps on your house, that is a maintenance item. If you go pay 10 grand for a new roof today, I can't add $10,000 to your house. My biggest pet peeve, don't do this so you see me just got fired up for a second. Don't get solar panels and think it's an investment. You want solar panels for yourself? Fine. Man, I got a client right now that we could have sold the house 20 million times. They owe $72,000 on their solar panels. So great for low utility, sure. If you want them, okay. But you'll hear, and I'm not ranting with anybody, but you'll hear these solar panel people go around selling solar and said, "Oh, we're adding investment to your house. You're gonna sell it for so much more money." Wrong. It does not add value to a house. Okay, may reduce utility bill and someone may like it. 72 grand? No. So what was the situation? Well, they'd have to sell them and have a new buyer take over the payment. A, they don't like to do that. B, that's going to mess with their approval because they're only approved for a certain value of home. If they're looking at buying this much value, they're not going to get approved for 7 more grand to take on your solar panels. Or B, you have to buy it at a price where the seller can relocate those panels, has to be paid off at closing, and then 10 grand for them to relocate them. Not going to work. Be careful. Great. Cool though to see these numbers, kind of see what we're putting into it. Awesome. Okay. Now look at your other little worksheet. Okay. Guess how long it took me to make this? Somebody knows. Somebody knows the real answer here. Who knows? Where did I get this? Yes. You know what the emoji the chat GPT made this. Yeah, we run our own numbers, but like I want to have a visual in front of you. This is perfect. This is everything you would need. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this slide example. 709, we're almost done. Look at that. Okay. So 1814 Ricardo. Now you can write on the sheet because it's yours. You can take it with you. There's extra. You try. Well, I don't want to write on it. You don't want to use it. We'll tell chat to make you another one. Or whatever. Or you can just listen. So this is for this property right here. This is 1814 Ricardo. You can follow along in person because we're gonna hopefully get worked on here in the next month or two. Obviously, we got a lot going on. Hopefully, you see this show up on work and hopefully see it sell, right? They're kind of fun to have a live example that we can look at too. So after repair value, what will it be worth after the repairs are done? Okay, don't worry about the weird language and acronyms. After repair value, what's it going to be worth? So I sold another house on Ricardo across the street and bought it off the courthouse steps. And we sold it for the highest price in this kind of small little neighborhood, Stoddard, Ricardo, right there off of Perryville. Okay. And we sold that one for $220,000. Now it was a range. Okay, those are always going to sell more than a split boiler would. But that one had no, never mind. They both have the ensuite is a half pack, not full. So you kind of got to watch that in the price too. Bedrooms, bathrooms, overall square feet, above grade square feet, as in how much total square footage upstairs. Anybody can finish a basement, right? So your upstairs is always going to be worth the most in value. So looking at the size of the home above grade is always most important. And of course, have finished square feet below. So I'm looking at that, looking at all the numbers. Obviously, like I said, this is my day job. After repair value, once we're done with this, I think it'd be worth 225 grand pretty easily. So what does that mean? I run for my numbers, 215. Okay, always playing conservative. So I put 215 on the estimated resale price for renovation. Price after renovation. All right, I'm gonna tell you all the tea. Okay, I'm gonna give you the scoop, so don't go sharing all this stuff. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a very real example, and you just so happen to be hearing a home run. All right. Now I led with all this because I worked my absolute tail off for 4 months as part of this deal, so don't forget that. So I got a pretty big deal. Yes, this thing needed some love, but once all the stuff is out, that's just demo and paint. That looks like a pretty nice house, right? A lot of the legwork came in because you had three siblings out of state who had no desire to come back to Missouri. So what was it worth to them to sell it to me, to deal with all their stuff, and mail them the personal possessions they wanted me to look for? It was worth a lot to them, I'll tell you that. But, and I joke about it, but we have a great relationship. Sad part of the story, actually. I'm dealing with three siblings. One of them passed away during the process. He was actually you might remember his, hang on a second. He was the sports broadcaster for Arkansas College, but great guy. So it's pretty sad. We got really close, and through the process, we dealt with each other for 4 months. I've updated him for 4 months. I've been looking for other personal possessions and family photos and everything for 4 months, right? So that was part of the deal. I bought this for $52,500. And that came with, Jared not only made as part of the deal that I would take care of all the stuff, but I also took care of the dumpster fees. I took care of the yard work. I took care of everything to make it easy on them. Okay, so that's the purchase price on the cost right now. That's also a steal. Okay, I'm not going to act like it wasn't. It was a great price. But to them, if I told them what they could get for it on the actual market, with just some work, they wanted to hire it out themselves and get the dumpster themselves, come back in town, look for their stuff themselves. They could have listed it for $70,000 to $80,000. But for me to handle all that, for them not have to worry about it, and some of the repairs I did notice needing, like the foundation work and cracking the laundry room, that's the number I came up with. And then he said, we gladly accept not to have to deal with it. Leave it in your hands. Okay. 52.5. So rehab/renovation costs. I gave that to you. Okay, what do you have? 57,780. So in this example, I used 60,000. I should actually use a lot more. Why? Because we're going to play conservative. I rounded up to 60. In my example, I got in my hand. I should have put 65. You never know. But I should have put 70. Okay? Might as well play on absolute worst case scenario. Holding costs. Reminder from earlier, this is our taxes, utilities, insurance, that kind of stuff. I estimated all this, holding it for 6 months. Probably gonna hold it a little longer, and I'm not upset because we're remodeling and it's an apartment building. That's okay. Sometimes you just take it on the chin. And be okay holding real estate. Imagine that. Selling costs. Now, what I didn't really go into earlier is the breakdown of there's costs when you buy it too. Like I said, there's some closing costs. If you're using cash, aka maybe line of credit as well, your closing costs are much, much, much less. The thick closing costs come in and you're like, oh my gosh, $5,000 in closing costs these days. That's when you're using a bank. Loan origination fees, maybe you're buying points down. Oh my gosh, closing costs can be a ton of money these days. So my closing costs to buy this property were only $623.21. So outside of the $52,500 that brings to the table, I only had to bring an extra $600 for closing costs. So $623.21 plus, this is all your selling costs. Holding costs was $2,000. Selling costs $623.21. That's what it cost me to purchase this deal. Plus $12,900. What's that? That is 6% of $215,000. AKA what I'm going to pay a real estate agent to sell this deal. I'm already taking account for that in these numbers here. So $12,900 and then closing costs. I had another $2,000 into that. Well, Jared, you just said as a seller, it's only a couple $100. I'm playing on the high side, baby. What if I need to offer to pay some of the buyer's closing costs? If I added an extra $2,000, I like to add in miscellaneous dollars just to see. I added all that up. And then the financing costs. This is interest, not fun right now, 7.5%, right? Any other points, lender fees, stuff like that? I have an extra $5,000 in there for that. Okay, so then you can see total estimated costs on the bottom would be our purchase, what we bought it for. What's always the biggie? You have to remodel it for. So like holding costs, utilities, stuff like that. I get it's money, but when you're doing your back of the napkin math, you're asking yourself, what do I have to buy it for versus what I know it's going to have to go into, talking to my contractor, getting used to all the numbers. Okay, I can buy it for 100. It's going to take probably 60. That's 160. What can I sell this for? 180? Oh, way too close. Not much margin. I'm not going to do the deal. Okay. Oh, I can sell this for 200, 215. I'm going to do some more numbers. I'm going to dig in a little bit more. The back of the napkin math packs, right? So, plus all of these things we just talked about right here, the total is 135, $23.21. 135,023, 21 cents. Projected profit, 215 minus the 135 number comes out to 79,976.79. That, my friends, is a home run. That that doesn't happen every time. Okay, I'll tell you that. Okay, and then I thought this was kind of cute and fun that chat put on here. But when comparing to other investments, return on investment ROI, kind of fun to at least do the math on. I just did my cash invested. Also left this on here to prove the point. I just put like anything on cash return in the multifamily world. It's how much money did I put down versus my return I'm getting back. So I just did my total cash invested for the purchase price, which is 52.5. I didn't go through and add everything else up. So my profit of 79,000 divided by what it used to buy the property, 52 grand, the 152% return. That's pretty sweet, right? And this is why I started flipping. You're kind of silly for not doing it. You have the opportunity. Okay? And yes, Chat GPT, I would say it's a strong decision. Worth pursuing. Okay? Now, here's the other thing. That return would get a whole lot better. If you're a big numbers person, I'll admit to you, I'm not. Okay? I was an English teacher for 2 years. I have an English education degree. I like that side of the brand. I like creativity. Okay. So if you're a spreadsheet person, number person, you can take this and freaking run with it if you want to, right? You can dig in a little bit more. I've dealt with some amazing flippers who do that kind of thing. Check out what would happen to your numbers if you would leverage the bank for how much money you're putting down, aka 20% of that purchase price, instead of buying everything always in cash. Okay. I get that there's different people in life who view things different ways. But if I would have done my numbers based on 10,500, my return would have been crazy different. Let me do that real quick. 10,500. I'm sorry. What did I put my sheet? What did I say I was going to make? So if I'm doing my ROI, my projected profit, 79,976.79 divided by total cash invested. Think about that. When you use other people's money and you leverage the bank, as long as it makes sense numbers wise, you're like, okay, I got to pay some interest, whatever, get over it. I'm only putting 20% down. Well, 20% down is $10,500 versus me putting 52 grand down. I got more money at stake here, less to make a return off of. So now divided by $10,500, 100, 761% return versus 152. Both are great, but I put less money down, I had more money in my pocket, more things to do with it, and the returns just get crazy when you use other people's money. Okay? Questions? Yes.
So when you use an OPM and they is it pretty much the same as when you use a hard lender besides just the points and probably the
Yes.
higher interest?
Yes, sir. Exactly right. And I apologize. I didn't say that earlier. If you're going to work with a local bank, it should be a good recommendation. Tons of good local banks around here. Then what they're going to want to see is 2 to 3 years worth of tax returns, and they're going to see a personal finance statement. Okay. I'll follow up with everybody. Did everybody sign in? Everybody sign in? Awesome. So I got your contact information. I'll follow up with you. If you want a personal finance statement to fill out, I'll send you a blank one, okay? Because otherwise you're gonna put 21 questions with the bank, and they're gonna ask you for everything you own and everything you owe, and yada, yada, yada. If you fill out a personal finance statement and you turn that in with your taxes, you give them everything they need to make a decision. The cool thing about the commercial rule, especially once you get into multifamily, actual investments and stuff like that, they care a whole lot more about the deal than they do you. Right? They're evaluating, is this a good investment? If I'm buying a house to live in, they're evaluating me, and is this guy gonna pay his stuff on time? Right? That's kind of the fun with real estate investing, is it really gets into how good's the deal. So hard money loans, really, yeah, you can find people. It's almost like seller financing. You find a person to play the bank, right? Hard money, they're like, hey, yeah, we'll give you the 100 grand. It's going to be at 12%, at 15%. Something outrageous. You're like, oh gosh, now I really got to pencil in that much interest to see, does this screw up my whole deal? It may mean I make, I might make 10, 15, $20,000 less than I might have. So it's like, well, hey, it's better than nothing. I'll still do the deal. But in the flipping world, when I'm dealing with $100,000 in price, and please, 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 bank, I promise it's worth it. Do an appraisal, give me the repairs too. A $150,000 deal, you can find banks to do that. You can find a bank to do that for sure. What else?
What's the biggest mistake you've seen the flippers make?
Not doing their numbers right. But I can never that enough. Is not putting enough margin in, thinking it's going to go right when it's always going to be something. I don't care how nice the property is, it's always, always, always going to be something. Not leaving yourself enough margin, not realizing how long it's going to take, and over flipping the property. Okay. I have this conversation with sellers all the time. And it's like, sometimes, like, let me run the numbers as it sits, because they walk in or I walk in and they think, oh, they're going to tell me I need to do like all these 50 things and spend all this money. It's like, well, I'm not really allowing you to add more money to your bottom line. I might be doing you a disservice if you could sell it for X and you're actually happy with X, right? Because it becomes part of stuff. Okay, if we say, well, the brown trim needs to go, it's dating the property. Oh crap! Now the door frames and the window seals are also brown, and now we need to replace that too. And the cabinets are brown. It's like, well, let's just do new cabinets. Like I said, people overflip too. You have to pay attention to the price range you're looking at. So if you have an inkling that a property is going to be worth 200 grand, go look at other $200,000 houses and see what it would look like. You might surprise yourself, and it's like, you know what? These oak cabinets don't even need painting. I think it's okay. And surprise yourself about like what you might not need to do. And if I would have budgeted a kitchen in here, these numbers would look totally different. And it could stop me from doing a deal. This deal is obviously a pretty hard one not to do. Like even if I did do the whole kitchen, but you also want to maximize your profit. Everybody does. So it's like you might as well make smart decisions about what needs to be done and not needs to be done.
Did you find that property on the market or MLS?
They contacted me.
Oh,
This was one where the family had a family friend who knew of me and contacted me. Which is the best way to buy? It's the best way to buy when they're seeking you out for this. Okay. Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't buy my own listings before. My first house up here, they called me for a listing point. I'm like, that's gone. I can see the river. I'm gonna buy it. I didn't go inside. You know what I mean? And I always wear my agent hat first because I feel like that's a conflict of interest. I will tell them, hey, on the market, we could sell it for this, and this is what we could list it for. And then if I do have personal interest, I would let them know that up front and say, if you want me to buy it, it's at this price, but I can add some value myself, right? It may be no commission. Let's take off 6%. Hey, it's as is. I'm comfortable with this property. Don't touch it. I need to talk about payment. Don't touch it. Don't spend it. So like you can, again, make it the ease and that kind of stuff. But I always in those situations play agent first because I want people to know exactly what they get on the market. That's what they call me. Now, there's tons of people that call me just because they know I do this. I've had people call me for apartments and stuff like that too, because I know I'm in apartments. So promote what you do want, right? once people call you for that because they know you're looking for a deal, turns out you might find a deal. Or hey, partner up with somebody. You know what I mean? Like I looked at a 14 unit apartment building the other day because my neighbor heard about it from their former manager who manages their property now. Contacted her and said, hey, one of my clients wants to offload a 14 unit apartment complex. She didn't want to handle that by herself, but she knew I had a ton. It was like, would you potentially want to go in on this together? So 14 unit got dropped in my lap that they were overpriced on. But gosh, I got involved because someone brought a deal to me. So a lot of it, when you're thinking about partnership, A, be careful. B, plan the divorce before the marriage. C, time, effort, money are the three things you should pay attention to. Time, effort, money. Okay? If I approach somebody and said, hey, I'm doing all the work, I'll spend all the time, I'll mess with the property, I'll deal with the agents, I'll deal with everything. Man, I need 20% down. Like, can we partner on this together? Right? So yeah, partnerships are also the thing that I'm going to touch on tonight. Because the last thing I want you to do is go leave and do nothing, right? I'd rather you do something. I'd rather you get started. The first property I bought, well, let me back up. The first property I ever put an offer on, I was under contract with, you can buy with an FHA loan up to 4 units. So live in one, rent the other 3. You hear that commonly as house hacking with like, I'm gonna live in one side of the duplex and rent the other, right? That was my idea for the first property I wrote an offer on, was a 4 unit. Under contract, super excited. One of my very, very good friends now, who's main code inspector for Cape now, he was my first home inspector. Doug, we've dealt with him several times, great guy. First time I met him was at this property to inspect it. Shook my hand, got the highs out of the way. He said, you want to hold this for a long time? And remember the whole Robert Kiyosaki thing, I thought I'd never sell anything. So like, I'm gonna own it forever. So he was like, well, you're buying money good. And I stopped the inspection, backed out of the deal. It's one of the only deals I've ever backed out on was the first one. So then I was like kind of bummed, of course. You know, I was like, dang, I thought I was gonna buy my first property. So FHA loans, also good for residential homes. I bought a residential home. My very first deal, it was 3.5% down. All of us can find 3.5% down, right? Eventually there's this great thing called appreciation. The property is gonna be worth more. Flipping is forcing appreciation. I'm gonna force this property to be better. I'm going to improve the property. I'm going to make it better. Okay. And that's the whole premise behind it. But my first one was 3.5% down. And then the property got better over time. Started buying the best deals, the best locations I could. Accumulated 6 or 7 houses. And then hired my first property manager, learned a lot there too. And then ended up, once I had a property manager that I didn't have to deal with anymore, I was like, well, I'm just going to buy the best deal possible. So I got into things like Section 8, and I wasn't dealing with the tenants. I was letting the manager deal with the tenants. My recommendation, don't. Why? Because usually Section 8 is a great program. I don't care if you want to deal with Section 8, there's people making a lot of money renting out Section 8. My only problem with Section 8 is who are you probably selling that to? One day, another investor. What investors like? Deals. Okay. All the other 6, 7 houses, 8 homes that I end up buying. Well, gosh, I can tell those are residential buyers too, and they'll pay a premium. Investors don't like to pay premiums. Okay. So I acquired all these different properties. Like I said, bought the best locations. Something popped up on Normal Street. I bought it before I saw it. Oh, like that's literally across from the bookstore on the campus of SEMA. That's a great location. And then went and looked at it afterwards. So just bought the best deals I could find. And then, like I told you earlier, anybody can do this. Okay. All you do is a little bit of time, a little bit of time, a little time, bought properties, started flipping so I could buy more properties, right? That's literally my story. Got really good at my day job sales, started flipping properties as well to save up more money, more 20% downs, more down payments to go buy more property. All of us can do this, even if it's over time. And like I said, I took 10 of my properties, which was the majority outside of like my office buildings and stuff, and some of the apartments I started to acquire, like 16 unit across from my house over here I used to live in, and I bought the 12 unit up the street. So I kept some of my nicer stuff. I took all 10 of those properties that some of them were really nice, good houses, good locations, by the college, but none of them compared to the Bachelor and Suites building. So right up here, across from the Park Marriott, the big mural I was talking about, one of the best corners in town. 24 residential units. It's got Bella Ever After, that boutique up front, so it's got commercial space as well. And now I deal with 24 tenants in one very nice property, very updated property, versus 10 headaches spread all over. I know we're not talking multifamily tonight, but if I can encourage you, that's where you want to get to. Because I got one roof to deal with now, not 10. I got a nicer location, hopefully better quality of tenants than 10 spread out all over the place. 28 or 10 HVACs, 10 roofs, 10 water heaters, you name it. Yes, ma'am.
Want to know more of the
If the feedback is good. Did you guys enjoy this? Would you guys come to other real estate investing events? Awesome. And we probably have them recorded, to be honest with you. The previous ones, if you guys want those, I will share them. I'm totally fine doing that. I'm not charging a penny. I just like doing this and talk real estate all day. So I can always do that too. Yeah, the first one we did like this was very, very like, I tried to cover A to Z. And we just went every single thing real estate investing I could think of, we did that. The second time we crimped it up a little bit and just tried to get more like actual examples of stuff I've done, like the Bachelor and Suites building. Other questions? 7:33, that's not bad.
I don't want to hold anybody else.
No.
This may be totally right, but back to the tax strategy. What's the 1031 exchange?
Yes.
Is that just like over time, you just put the taxes off and still have to pay them?
Correct.
Yes, after it just sort of pushes it out something.
Yeah, and this is something I talked about last time too. So I'm glad that you're asking the question so we can at least hear it tonight. Because otherwise flipping, you can't flip, you can't 1031 flip. Just so we're clear on that. The IRS views this as, like I said, short-term capital gain. They view it as a business. It'd be awesome if you could, but that's not the point. Then you can take a lot of profit, do something else with it, tax-free. So I say tax-free, I just messed up. It's tax deferred. Okay, you're done. You're not getting rid of the tax when you do a 1031. So if I sold this building we're sitting in right now and made $100,000 on it, you know what I mean? I would pay a fat check to Uncle Sam, 40%. Ew! Who wants to pay 40 grand to Uncle Sam? Like what? I might as well keep the thing. Ugh, it makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. So that's, no one wants to do that, right? So what do? Well, guess who wrote the tax code? All the rich people. I want to do it with rich people. So what they do is 1031 exchange. So you don't get rid of the tax. And actually you need more than that. Because you're taxed on your gain. And if I'm gonna use easy numbers, okay? If I bought this for 200 grand and I sell it for 300 grand, and it was just a flat $100,000, that was my gain, right? Well, what else do people do in real estate? Tax strategies. One of the best things about you owning real estate is now you have tax strategies. Okay, what is one of them? I depreciate this building every single year. This is a commercial building, right? So you can write this off over 39 years. You can depreciate this asset a little at a time. Why? Because the government says, oh, I agree, this will get worse over time. Like the quality of this building theoretically will get worse. One day, these floors will have to be replaced. Yes? True. The roof has to be replaced. This asset gets worse over time. So what they do, they value the building itself when you're depreciating, not the land. You can't depreciate the land by itself, okay? But they do agree that tax code says that this asset's going to get worse. So they'll let me write off a piece every year. That's freaking crazy. All right. So 39 and a half years I can do this. On a multifamily asset or a building that people live in, I can do that for 27 and a half years. Okay. Now, if I do that every single year, the point I was getting back to is they count that against my gain. So not only am I getting $100,000 worth of gain, if I depreciated all these different years, they're going to add that back in too. And I got to pay them to send that back as well. So what's the answer? Defer your taxes. If I, no, let's go use those 10 properties I sold. I bought the Mastering Suites for $2.25 million. If I put 20% down, which is required in the commercial world to buy that asset, 450, geez, 450 grand, I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money. Well, those 10 properties that Jared had acquired over 5 years, the market got better, the properties improved. Some of them I may have put some love into, like we're talking about tonight, improved the properties. I put 20% down in all of those properties, working hard for my money and buying passive investments. Like all my 20% down, locked away, stored safely away in my real estate, right? So now, whenever I sell all those, I got my 20% back theoretically, plus the properties that appreciated, they got better. So I got all that money back. The profit of each one of those, all 10 of them added together for the price I sold them at. I sold all 10 at the same time to a friend of mine from St. Louis. I wanted to get involved in Cape real estate. Okay. My profit from selling those 10, this is pretty crazy with God thing, was $461,000. I put like $11,000 down on my loan and brought $0 to the table whenever I bought the Bachelor Suites through a 1031 exchange. Guys, that's freaking nuts that people can do this. Awesome. And every single one of us can do that. That's the cool thing. It only started because I scraped up enough pennies to find 3.5% down on a property I bought for 115 grand. I didn't start with, spoon in my mouth. Okay. I mean, some of these properties I bought, it's kind of fun. So one of these properties, the one I just talked about that I bought by the campus on Normal Street, I just bought a property and I saw it pop up and I'm like, oh my gosh, the location is awesome. I went to my bank and said, hey, I just bought this little property and I already had to put money down. Can you please let me only put 15% down on this one? I go, okay, fine. So this property was inherited. They weren't getting rid of the stuff. They were going to trash it. I said, you mind if I look around before you guys trash the stuff? And it was being sold in return. I'm not sure, we don't care. So went back through and it said, take whatever you want. Hey, I found a gun, which is pretty cool. I still have it. So I found radio tools, all sorts of stuff. And I also found like $400 of gold gold change. That 100% was towards my down payment. Okay. Like I was scraping. And sometimes, guys, you just make deals work. Like I promise you that the money's not the hard part. It's the deal. Find a deal, you will get the money. In any capacity you can, because once you're running up to these deals, you can't pass them up. Like, dang, I got to do the deal. But yeah, the 1031, it doesn't get rid of taxes. But if I ever sell the Mastering Suites, I would just do another 1031. Now, I will defer the taxes all day long because there's a lot of money built up there that I technically owe in taxes that unless I'm just going to cash out one day and I'm retiring and I don't really care about paying Uncle Sam and I'll just keep my remainder and live a happy life. Boring. That'd be the only reason to do that. That's sometimes you got to pay some taxes. Yes. If you're like, I'm done with owning property, I just want to take my money and go retire. Sweet, pay your taxes for all day. The answer is generational wealth. When you hear about that word, is I'm going to keep doing the 1031 thing until I'm blue in the face, buy better properties, however I possibly can. And then whenever I die one day, my kids are going to get on my properties, taxes go away. They die with me. That's this whole generational wealth thing. It's the deferred taxes don't pass along to my kids. The real estate that cash flows every month passes on to my kids. That's pretty sweet. And if I blow your brains enough tonight, tax strategies. Sorry, you guys got me amped up, man. There's this thing. Anybody ever heard of? I'm not again, right? Ask me now. Anybody ever heard of? No, I just lost it. Cost segregation. My goodness, shit. Ladies. Anybody ever heard of cost segregation? This is unfair. How crazy it is that we can do this. Like you hear the loopholes of real estate. Here's one. This is where you get to number 2. what I usually teach on this when we do an investing night is I go through the financial seniority ranking once, and I go through it twice, talking about real estate. Because real estate makes sense with all of these. And one of the biggest ones is the tax advantages. Name me another investment, not a flip, that's business, right? Real estate investments, apartment buildings. Name me another investment that pays you every single month, cash flow, they got to pay rent, right? That gets better over time, appreciates. You can depreciate against your taxation. It gets worse over time. Over time, I can write it off. And pays me every single month. It gets better while it gets worse. Writes it off against my taxes. And it pays me every single month. And I have these things called tenants that take care of my bills. That does not make sense in investing. Bitcoin doesn't do that. Bitcoin doesn't appreciate while it depreciates. Right? Like no other investment stocks don't do that. Stocks aren't real to me. Like in the air somewhere or something, right? It's a piece of paper. Like trading paper for paper, cash for a piece of paper. This is very real. We're sitting in a building right now. Okay. Cost segregation. So we talked about long-term depreciation. It's a great thing to have. You want long-term depreciation. You want write-offs every single year. Well, cost segregation is where you take all of that 27 and a half years we were talking about, and you take it up front. As in, I'm going to write off all 27 and a half years worth of depreciation in year 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. That's wild, 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 wild. It takes a study. Okay, you got to hire a firm to do an actual cost segregation study of your property. You guys know the Sunny Hill Suites building I bought on West End by Independence? Okay, big property, big remodel, 70 units. Working hard on it right now. So I'm going to do a cost segregation on that building, and what that means is like $10,000 to $15,000. It's not cheap, but guess what? That's a write-off. I'm going to write off my accountant too. I'm going to write off the cost segregation. It's a $10,000 bill that I'm going to pay for and get wrote off against my taxes. All right. But they're going to do a study to see what the actual property is worth, not the ground, right? Because you can't write off the ground, you can't depreciate the ground. But they're going to say, okay, well, you got 70 refrigerators, you got this many HVACs, you got this roof, you got floor, cabinets, you name it, and they're going to do a study on the whole property and say, this is theoretically what your long-term depreciation would have been, and we're going to give that to you up front. In the layman's terms of Jared explained. That's nuts. So the first time I did a cost segregation study like that, actually on the Bachelor and Suite building. So you can do it in the year that you purchase that property. Okay. I don't think you can do it next year. I'd have to check on that. Obviously with the year up. So I saved like $70,000 against my taxes that year. Crazy, because I absorbed all that and then wrote it off up front. Okay. So what's the moral of the story there? Well, if you plan to do this real estate investing thing, and you're at least going to buy one property a year, yeah, you're taking all your advantages up front. When you hear people say they don't pay real estate taxes, or they don't pay taxes, and like politicians, and you get people yell at them like, check their tax returns. They don't pay taxes. Like, well, they don't pay taxes because they use stuff like this, right? And it's like hard to explain it in a microphone in a public room. But when you use cost segregation, you can write off thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars legally, right? Well, then, let me get back to the point. The point is, if you plan on doing that once a year, and if I can buy a big property once a year, and eventually be on that kind of routine, well, I do a cost segregation once a year. And I just do a big write-off every single year. So I can write off $70,000, $100,000, $150,000 once a year, based on me continuing to buy property and doing cost segregation over and over and over. That's how people don't pay taxes. Make a whole lot of money legally learning to save it. Control your spending discipline, or all of your hard-earned money into a passive vehicle. Yes, ma'am.
And so next investment course,
Yeah.
what books would you recommend?
Oh, man.
Should I get into reading?
I love it because I love books. Rich Dad Poor Dad,
I really read it. Good.
perfect. It's a great one. Read it 20 times. Anybody ever heard of Ron Cleef? Probably maybe you haven't heard before. I'm in his Warrior group. It's kind of a cool name, right? I'm actually going to their real estate investing class in Florida for his Warriors, as they call us, at the end of the month. And that was a $20,000 investment to be a part of this group and learn all the things and go to this stuff. But they also put on virtual classes that are like $54. And it's over a Saturday, Sunday. So I follow his podcast because he talks about all the time. Follow Rod, Instagram, ROD. It's like KHLIEF. His podcast is Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. And he's always talking about his next event. The next virtual one they put on, it's like a Saturday, Sunday. It'll blow your mind how much information they go over. Now, I will warn you, their big thing that they go over, which is a little like, you said down, is a syndicating. Syndicating, which basically means you try to raise capital to go buy big apartment buildings together with a group of investors. Okay, that's a little up there on the food chain, right? But you'll still learn some very valuable stuff. But he has a great real estate investing book. You just Google Rod Cleef real estate book. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Now it's a little bit more to chew on, but he does a very good job explaining. Anything and everything by Grant Cardone. He also wrote a real estate investing book that's a little bit easier to chew, very quick read. That's a good one as well. Psychology and Money. It's not really about real estate. It's a great book. It's a newer book, Psychology and Money. You guys, a lot of you have probably heard of Bigger Pockets podcast. Very, very popular. My goodness, there's a billion episodes. You can go watch your heart's content on that one or listen. I believe they Bigger Pockets wrote a book. They're also the creators of the Burr Method. So they have a Burr Method book out there, I'm pretty sure. I listen to a lot of podcasts too. That'd be a good start. The owner of Keller Williams wrote The Millionaire Agent and then The Millionaire Real Estate and Investor. Also a good one. But yeah, I can talk books all day.
Cleef is KHLEIF.
EIF. All right, thank you. Before I know, I'm gonna let you guys get your evening. We can always do more questions, but I want to let you guys know of another event. If you like events in general, I promise I'm gonna talk about this no matter what event I'm at. It's this alone is like, hey, I'm giving people value every time they come in. Okay. So we always do talk a little bit about just investing in general and stuff like that. But this is our next Private Beginning Summit. If you follow us on Facebook or if you see me in our company talk about events, this one's our reoccurring event. We always do this bi-monthly. Okay. This is more about how to get a real estate license. Okay. Like I just said, no pressure this way, but one of the big things about having a license is you do have access deals. Okay. I mean, lying, like I said, I bought many other listing points. The Vast Twin Suites building I just talked about, big 24 unit. They called me to sell that building. I sold 6 little residential houses for them that they had rented out. And they called me randomly 2 years later out of the blue and said they wanted to sell that thing. So it helps. But June 10th, it's a Tuesday night. We usually do this on Thursdays. It's a Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, right back in this room. Basically, just going to talk more real estate like we did tonight, and then also learn a little bit more about our company and then how you work to get your license and all that kind of stuff. But any other questions I can help with?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, let's say 27 years, well, after 10 years, you want to sell.
Yes.
What happened with the 17 years?
Oh, the remainder? Yeah, you just wouldn't get to claim that on your taxes anymore if you sell the property. You would get up to that amount that you owned it that you were writing off, right? But don't forget that that is viewed as part of your capital gain. So the smart thing to do would just be to 1031 that asset into another. And that way you get to defer the taxes. You got the write-off for those 13 years, whatever it was. You got to enjoy that while you had it. And now you move on to bigger and better things. Yeah.
And you also do the license people?
Yes. Well, So I'm a real estate broker, so I hold real estate licenses, for agents to sell. And we have, like I said, 41 agents. We have, offices in Cape Jackson, Perryville. I got licensed in Illinois last year. We have, one agent fully licensed, a couple others working on it, and a young man that just passed his exam, to get licensed in Illinois as well. But yes, this class, this summit teaches you all about that, and we give you a sheet of information that'll lead you right through it. But
Here or in St.
Here.
Louis?
Here.
That they're taking the test and everything is here, so.
you're still always be in St. Louis. They just changed it a few months back, which is awesome. That in taking your actual real estate exam, you can even do an online project from your bedroom if you want. Or you can take, your exam. They even have, dates at the CTC now. Awesome, awesome.
They didn't do a computer for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I talk about that a lot with this because quite frankly, people that want to make it a success, having a real estate license is a great way to make a great income. And if you want to become a real estate investor or flipper, or you name it, hey, sometimes having a license is a way to find that 20% down if you're helping some friends buy and sell. More? Do you guys have a hand up?
I mean, somebody is, right?
You're good.
Yeah.
Questions are valuable for everybody.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily pertains to a flip, so you find the property, how do you know? Besides, I think I'm gonna answer it by just looking over this.
It's okay.
Calculation, so say you found the off market, direct to seller deal, distress, say a pre-foreclosure, would you add, like, say they're in arrears? Couple grand,
Yeah,
would you add that into like,
if it's something you had to pay,
it would be something you have to pay?
if it was something you had to pay.
Okay,
I mean, you might find somebody facing foreclosure, or even worse, you find somebody that did a reverse mortgage, and now it's impossible to catch back up and sell the property. The house I live in right now, it was a bittersweet situation. They needed out. I got a good deal. They were, potentially going to lose the house type situation.
then like sub two,
What's that?
usually like sub two, was that like subject to?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Just normal purchase.
oh,
But got the closing statements and found out even after trying to give them exactly what they owed because of fees and stuff, and they owed back taxes and et cetera. So when you write a title search, you might find out that there's a lien against this property. There might be a federal judgment against the property, and they can't sell this sucker unless they pay 50 grand. Like I've seen it all, right? So in this case, we tried to, hit a number that sufficed to them, still a good deal for me, and they wanted out for what they owed. Well, all the final numbers came back at the closing statement, and they were like $1,300 short. I was getting a good deal. Like I said, don't get me wrong. They didn't have $1,300. So this whole deal got to fall apart because in order to close, they would have had to bring money to the table. So there's nothing that said who has to bring that money to the table. I brought $1,300 extra dollars. Got to lose his house. So yeah, it depends. Every deal's different. I mean, I also got some furniture came along with it, so I just act like I paid a little more, Anything else? Well, this was an awesome group. I really appreciate you guys giving your time to this, and obviously you